Alright, so moving on to turn number 4. Yeah, here is where everyone kind of doesn't do anything again. So I'm going to go through this turn really fast. So one thing that you will notice is that here on turn 4, this is where I start to try and pull some of my tanks out of that central position. You'll see these 2 platoons of pads. I'm sort of reinforce that southern that southern wing. This is where I give up the ghost on Missouri Ridge. So I'm looking at the battlefield now. I've played plenty of Arab Israeli wars over the last 20 years. I can kind of see how this is going to go. Missouri Ridge, it looks really weak. Trust me, it's not. That is a deceptively strong position. Overrunning Egyptian infantry platoons, especially when they are in IPs or improved positions, that's like, you know, slit trenches, foxholes, things like that, is terribly risky for Israeli tanks, especially in 1973 scenarios. Egyptian infantry gets insane bonuses once you get to 1973. That's because every 4th man is carrying an RPG. And on top of that, the Egyptian infantry has been trained not to be afraid of Israeli tanks. That glamour of the invincible Israeli tank is gone forever. It's never coming back. So yeah, you do not overrun Egyptian infantry lightly in this game. In the meantime, I might lose an objective hex down here. If he takes this one, he's now winning the game. So as you can see how vulnerable it is. There's no cover, there's no terrain, there's no trees, there's no dunes. It's literally just laying there waiting to be overrun. And that's not an error in game design or map graphics. That's how it was. Those 2 roads, Tircha Road and Akavish Road, were desperately vulnerable the entire time. I have just 1 tank platoon. I am in the process of fixing that with this movement here. It's going to continue down here later, but for turn 3, turn 4, and going into turn 5, this is very vulnerable down here. And yeah, I was a little nervous, I won't lie. How about you? What did you think here about turn? What did you think, Piotr, about turn 4?
Yeah, I must agree. I did not realize how weak your position in the south was. But I was happy that I made your patrons go back and turn south, leaving Missouri Ridge where it where it was without making an attack. Because, as you were saying, the Egyptian infantry is really good when it comes to defense, but still, with the mobility of your force, a lot of half-tracks, and an easy way to push a lot of infantry north suddenly from this little village hex in the south that you have, it was easy for you to push them north, try to take Missouri Ridge or even take it. And then you would have 4 objective hexes taken versus mine 1 objective hex, and that would be, speaking in game terms, game. But I was still trying to figure out how to take the southern objective in a 1 push, and my plan was to drop smoke, cover the line of sight of your paras and your remaining tanks, and try to give it a push for the objective.
Yeah, these
one way or another.
These paratroopers really pose no threat. I-class weapons in Arab Israeli wars can only engage armored targets at a range of 2 hexes. So that gunfire, laws, stuff like that, light anti-tank rockets, stuff like that, that pretty much ends here. And the only threat you're facing, honestly, is these patents.
Well, I had to, fight with what was available, and there is a lesson to be learned when it comes to this objective attacking and trying to take advantage of your momentary weakness when it comes, for example, to this only 1 pattern defending the road. But I didn't do it. I was still afraid of the range and not knowing the tactics of overwhelming your tanks in Arab-Israeli wars, or at least the way you can try to tackle the problem of quality versus quantity.
Okay, so heading over here to turn 5, where things finally start to get a little serious. Turn 5, I finally kind of lost patience. Number 1, I got a little bit brave because first thing I did, some artillery landed on his BM-31 rockets. So I kicked one of the 3 legs out of his artillery right here. I was very happy about that because Egyptian infantry is scary enough. Egyptian artillery is terrifying. It was mostly used in this game to drop smoke screens until the end of the game. I was a little curious about that. But that was maybe another Egyptian weapon that didn't maybe get used to its complete potential. But again, everybody who watches this later on YouTube, it was Piotr's first game at Harvest Wargamers, to be perfectly honest. And I've been playing this game literally since 1987, 1988. So, yeah, I've played this game a lot. Now, what else was I going to say? Oh, this is where I kind of lost patience and I said go for it. So I shoved most of the 890th Battalion out into this open field, unloaded them out of their half tracks. That sounds like a crazy thing to do, but I was again dropping artillery into these positions and starting to pin them down, knock them out, smoke them, blind them. So this wasn't a completely crazy attack, but it was kind of a completely crazy attack. I mean, I've already lost a couple of units out here. We got burning half tracks. My 1 platoon of Pattons has now been, I moved it out here to sort of act as a fire bait to draw fire. It drew some fire, all right, and it's now disordered. That's why it's kind of, knocked off at an angle there. Let's see what else is going on. My other those other 2 Patton platoons have made it down here. I also have one pretty important little unit. This is that little anti-aircraft half-track. Yeah, there are no more Egyptian aircraft in the sky because we've used up all our air power, but that 20mm automatic cannons is really good against infantry. So yeah, I've been using that almost as like a poor man's assault gun to provide some kind of fire support across this raw desert here. Again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Flames of War tables away. That is 1,750 meters of open terrain that these guys have to cross. Welcome to the desert. But so far they're doing pretty good. So Piotr, what do we got going on your side here on turn 5?
Well, I was actually happy that you launched this assault because something started going on in the desert. But I was pretty confident that I will hold on to Chinese farm. I wasn't sure if I will be able to recapture any of the objectives for victory reasons, but I was hoping to smash your infantry in the open and not allow them to even move to a hex near the Chinese farm. And we shall see how that played out in the next turn.
Alright, speaking of which, here is turn 6. Yeah, so turn 6, I keep trying to push closer into this attack on Chinese farm. Again, historically, Chinese farm never came close to falling. I almost tried it as like a case of morbid curiosity to see if I could even try to do it. But I'm pretty well channelized here. He's got minefields here. He's got minefields here. There's only one hex I can go through. That hex has a wreck counter in it, so it's partially clogged by burning Egyptian tanks. Now he's got some live Egyptian tanks in there as well. And every hex, or every turn I'm standing out here in these open hexes, he's raining his remaining artillery. I am chewing away at his artillery with my offboard artillery, so that's good. And I am pinning the crap out of him with my own offboard artillery, and also smoking these saggers to kind of save my tanks. He did finally push that one platoon, or that one stack of T-55s around here. My covering tanks here have killed 2 of them. They have pinned the 3rd one. I don't even remember where the 4th one is. Where the hell are
It's in the middle.
Oh yeah, that's right. He ran up this way instead. He was like, I'm not following these guys. They all got blown up. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. But honestly, I don't foresee me winning down here. These are all fortified buildings, channelized behind minefields, supported by Egyptian artillery, anti-tank missile support, Czechoslovakian 107mm recoilless rifles to take out light vehicles with. Yeah, it's not going to go well for me down here. But hey, that's how it goes. Meanwhile, up here we were talking about how to actually maneuver T-55s or similar Egyptian or Syrian tanks against against Israeli tank positions. So where Piotr did have some of his four remaining platoons of T-55s was here in this agricultural building hex. And what he eventually did was, he lost one to opportunity fire from the one tank that could actually see. And then the rest of them he swung up around here. And yeah, there's not much I can do about it because, again, I can only fire once. So if you can use terrain to your advantage to screen your movement at least a little bit, and again, just kind of come to peace with the fact that the Israeli tank is going to probably kill the Israeli tanks that you're trying to rush are probably going to kill the first tank that actually moves. You can actually get away with quite a bit. So a quick tip for anyone who plays any kind of hex and counter game where you're playing the Egyptians, the Syrians, the Iraqis in Desert Storm, the Soviets in Team Yankee, or a Team Yankee type scenario, is try not to move your tanks in a stack. Alright, if you have 4 tanks in a stack, at the time he had 4, so let's just go ahead and pretend he's got a 4th one here. Okay, if he's got 4 tanks in a stack, and he wants to move against this position, don't pick up the stack of 4 and say, because all that allows him to do is say, I have 50 here because I double under 7, I have 50 here because I double under 7, that's 100. I can take out 3 of his tanks easy with like an easy 3-to-1 roll. You do is you move like one at a time, which is kind of how you're supposed to move your vehicles anyway, and that way, okay, boom, you blew up one, and now he's fired. And now this guy, by the way, had fired somewhere down here to the south, so don't even worry about this guy. So he had fired, he couldn't see. I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but I was only able to kill one of his tanks, and that allowed the other 3 to maneuver around here, and he really put this hex under threat for a while. He almost took it. Imagine, just for a second, if he had had all 11 of his tanks, platoons, ready to go in that one spot. Okay, he loses that one to indirect fire. We already talked about that. Now he's got, 10 left? Who's walking away from this get-together? He wins the game right here if he had all 11 of his tanks in that one spot. So when you're playing the Egyptians, the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Soviets, when you're basically playing with Soviet tanks, because no matter what, you're playing with Soviet armor. When you're using Soviet armor in a war game, pick your spot, pick it well, and commit everything at once. Swarm him with everything all at once. These tanks are pretty fast. Soviet armor is actually pretty quick. Use that speed. You're gonna take some losses. Don't be shy about taking some fire. But then what's left is going to overwhelm him. And once you get close, that 15, like in average relay wars, once I get within 2 hexes, that 15 doubles to 30. And that 30 can attack all of my tanks against my defense of 15 at 2-to-1. This 15 gets doubled to 30. And how average relay wars works, it gets compared against their target's defense. So once you get close ranged, it's 2-to-1. Whereas before, it's 8. Because again, outside of 4 hexes, that 8 gets divided to 4. So now it's 8 versus 15. It goes from 1 to 2 to 2-to-1. His odds literally get 4 times better once he gets within 500 meters. Because at 500 meters, a T-55 hits just as hard as an M48. Where the M48 has all the advantages is at long range. You read about any Israeli tank battle, it's all about range, range, range. And if you are playing the Egyptians and the Syrians and you want to last longer than 5 minutes, get close, get close, get close. That's how you take away all of his advantages. There's not a lot of terrain in the desert to hide behind, but there is some, and even if you can't use terrain, use your numbers. You are going to outnumber him. He outnumbered me in this game, I think 11-5 when it came to tanks. It might have been 11-6 when it came to tanks. Group them all together and attack at once in one particular area. I'm not saying it would have worked, but again, with all these tanks up here, Jesus, I don't think my 2 tanks would have survived. As it is, I lost 1 and the other one was disordered, and that was against 4. If there were 7 more up here, I think I would have lost in the center. Alright, so what do you got going on here for turns 6, 7, and 8? Mr. Piotr?
Well, my tanks were dying in the center, and I was still trying to slaughter your infantry that was trying to capture Chinese farm. And actually, this is how it played out. We were fighting over Chinese farm, and you were trying to stop my tanks in the center, which you, as we shall see in a second, managed to do. But it kept you occupied for some time, and maybe you couldn't focus that much on the Chinese farm itself.
Yeah, so that little swing around the side there, here on turn 7, it did blow up one patent. I've already lost it. The other patent is now disordered. This hex is now desperately open. I've got 2 platoons of Israeli paratroopers against 15 T-55s. I'm about to lose it. The only way I'm able to even come close to stabilizing this area up here in these central crossroads is to pretty much give up the ghost here on Chinese farm. So all these tanks and self-propelled artillery pieces, or anti-aircraft pieces, the reason I had them staged there, you'll notice they're only 4 hexes away. This was to unlock certain, I don't want to say bonuses, but to avoid some of the worst penalties for an absolute, like, Napoleon-style cannonade, to just blow a hole, to brute force my way into Chinese farm. Well, I had to go ahead and cancel that. And all these tanks had to instead fire north and actually take out some of these T-55s at long range when I lose my doubling bonus. So I was forced to realign. I was forced to engage Egyptian armor at less than optimal conditions. It did work, but it cost me any chance at Chinese farm, which means that all these little smoke columns are destroyed Israeli paratrooper platoons. I've lost 160 men here, again 40 men to a platoon, basically for nothing. Plus these 2 back here, I've lost good grief, like 6 platoons of Israeli. I've lost the better part of a battalion in there. For no reason, because I'm not going to crack Chinese farm now, because my tanks that were set to support them had to turn north and fire north to stabilize the situation here in the center. Yeah, so again, here we are on turn 8. Things are more or less stabilized here. I called in a shit ton of artillery as well. Again, that's something else I had to draw off of Chinese farm. Chinese farm got a 2-turn respite off of, or I should say a 2-turn respite out from under my 155mm howitzer batteries, so I could, again, stabilize the situation up here. I did manage to save this area, barely, and again, it cost me everything down here. As you see here, there's pretty much no Israelis left. Those that are left are starting to pull out. I haven't really made an appreciable dent here in Chinese farm. I killed a couple platoons. One thing that Piotr's definitely doing well is he is bringing in reinforcements to keep his front line steady. So these 2 hexes, 3 hexes really, are his front line, and this hex used to have a stack of Egyptian infantry in it, and as he takes losses, he just reallocates, and he keeps like a little conveyor belt of units in there. Meanwhile, the Israeli units are dying at triple the rate, and there's nobody behind them. So complete Israeli failure here. Moderate success in the center, where I was able to stabilize the situation and pretty much break the back of Egyptian armor. I mean, there's 1 BTR platoon up here, there's 1 T-55 platoon up here left, but they're not really going to, cause too much of a problem. I pretty much have the center locked up at this point. And with that, I think pretty much the game, because now he has to take this hex to win, and I don't think he's going to do it. Not with all this armor watching over it, not with only 2 platoons of T-55s left. It was an expensive prospect, but unless Piotr disagrees, I think I pretty much have it locked up at this point, here at the end of turn 8.
Yeah, I agree totally, because turn 9 you, well, maybe to skip to turn 9,
yeah.
The only thing that you did was to push your patterns on the southern ridge of the of the Chinese farm, while I was still holding to my positions with my infantry. In the north, I totally give up any attempts to do anything. I was just, standing over there and waiting for something to happen. Maybe you would, poke your nose with some infantry or something like that. just watching over Missouri Ridge with this one platoon of T-55s and BTRs. And in the south, as you said, I was depleted. I had I couldn't mount a suitable force in order to try to capture the road. That was impossible, and so I decided to withdraw and keep my position locked and safe in the Chinese farm.
So yeah, turn 10, we pretty much just wrapped it up here. The game does go down as an Israeli victory, although only by 1 hex. I only have 3 objective hexes. The Egyptians resolutely hold 2, especially Chinese farm. Just for fun, I tried to kind of sweep around the south bank, or the south edge of Chinese farm a little bit, at least so I could say I saw the objective hex. I couldn't even see because there's town hexes, palm groves. I couldn't even see the objective hex to call an artillery on it. So at least here, and it cost me another platoon of patents, to be honest. But at least here, I was able to see the hex, and had the game progressed into a 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th turn, maybe I could have called in some artillery on it. That's if this patent platoon didn't get knocked out or disordered or anything else like that. The other one did, to point-blank fire from that last platoon of T-55s. Yeah. But by now it's pretty much locked up. It's a forlorn hope. I'm never really going to take Chinese farm. He's never really going to take Tircha Road. Missouri Ridge is locked up for the Egyptians. Piotr he came close to taking the center, but it didn't actually work out. Again, that did cost me another stack of tanks and some more half-tracks, infantry platoons, things like that. What sort of shut things down here in the north is that by the time he made that offensive, he only had 4 platoons available to do it with. If he had done it with 8, like 2 full stacks, or even all the tanks in his force, 11, I'm pretty sure he would have taken it. I might have been able to take it back afterwards, but again, once the Israelis have to attack the Egyptians, that means opportunity fire for the Egyptians, and that means knocked out Israeli tanks. And Israelis just don't have the numbers. The Egyptians have to play the numbers game. They have to kind of accept the fact that when they move, they're going to lose a couple platoons of tanks, but they've got 10 more, and they've got to make sure that those 10 count. So, to kind of simplify it, if you've got 11 platoons of Egyptian tanks, and you have them split into 3 elements, which is kind of what happened here, okay, and every time you move Egyptian tanks, it costs you 1 platoon, at least, if not 2. Let's say it costs you 2 platoons. Okay, you've got 3 tanks up here, it costs you 2 platoons, you have 1. You've got 4 tanks here, it costs you 2 platoons, you have 2 left. You have 4 platoons here, you lose 2, it costs you 2. You've lost half your force. Okay, compare that with, I have 11 tank platoons, they're in one big mass. I go to move them, I lose 2 tank platoons, I have 9. Whoever's in the way of those 9 is about to have a bad day. Yeah, it's bloody. It's bloody, but that's the only way that you even have a chance. And I think that goes beyond Arab-Israeli wars. I think that goes into any modern tank game, where again, you're playing Syrians, Egyptians, Iraqis, Soviets, Chinese. Whenever you're playing the big mass tank army with low-powered guns and low-range guns, short-range guns, versus the more powerful American, Israeli, British, NATO, whatever you want to call it, against the smaller numbered but superior technology force. If you attack them in pieces, they're going to be able to use that range to pick you apart at a comfortable distance. If you just hammer punch them all at once, it's going to be a hell of a die roll. But if you pull it off, you're going to do pretty well, at least for a while. But anyway, those are my thoughts, and I've talked way too long. Piotr, what did you think of your first game of Arab-Israeli Wars?
Well, it was fun and educating, if war can be fun. But
war game can be fun, yeah.
Yeah, a war game can. It was really educating and enlightening because I did learn a few things, especially the ones that you talked about with putting your tanks en masse and rushing it in one direction in order to achieve some tactical goal. But all in all, I think it was still a good game. I was indecisive at the beginning. My tactics that I found sound at the time I was playing to divide my force in order to make you scatter your force was maybe sound, but not with the equipment I was using. I should have massed my tanks into one, big column and try to take care of the center and recapture it, and maybe then make you fight for it. I didn't, but yeah, it was a good game. It was nice to see some tanks on offensive on your side and some infantry on defense on my side. When it comes to the Chinese farm, you were trying to capture the objective till the end. I was trying to hold it till the end. I really didn't have the knowledge of how the game mechanic works when it comes to all these tanks and how to lure your tanks into opportunity fire in order to take advantage of it and try to do better at the center. However, I still think it was a great game. It was really enlightening for me when it comes to learning the Arab-Israel wars mechanics, and I must thank you for it, because you're really a great teacher when it comes to providing information for your, so to speak, students of Arab-Israeli Wars Panzer Leader game series.
My Panzer Leader Padawans. But in all seriousness, guys, what Piotr's saying, and I absolutely agree with him. This was his first game of Arab-Israeli Wars ever, and I've been playing this game on and off since 1988. So do the math. Number one. Number two, I was playing the Israelis. The Israelis are obviously technologically and doctrinally the superior force. They're just always the smaller force, and there are certain blind spots in the Israeli defense force, especially vis-a-vis Egyptian infantry and artillery. I feel that Egyptian artillery might not have been used to its full extent in this game. A lot of smoke screens, which are great, but sooner or later, it's good to kind of shift out the high explosive, the smoke for high explosive. But by then you'd lost a couple of your batteries anyway. Definitely do note that I made elimination, or at least suppression, of Egyptian artillery one of my priorities. I did invest a couple half tracks up there. I lost a couple half tracks as well, making sure that I at least watered it down a little bit. I even lost one of my airstrikes trying to take out Egyptian artillery. So yeah, Egyptian artillery is scary, for damn sure. Any final thoughts, Piotr?
Oh, we should play more.
There you go. All right, guys. So that's going to wrap us up for today. We definitely appreciate all your support here on the Sitrep podcast. Once again, thanks very much to Piotr and really anybody who signs up to play any of these games with us virtually. So we definitely appreciate anyone who participates in them. We definitely appreciate the whole community who takes the time to leave comments, likes, subscribes, things of that nature to help us keep going with the Sitrep podcast. And yeah, that's about it. So thanks again, everybody. This is Oriskany with the Sitrep podcast signing off. Thanks again, Piotr, and take care, everybody, and we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.